Well, TA, on a personal note, let me start by saying I'm really sorry that you didn't make it. I know it was your third attempt. What's going through your mind now that you're home?
Well, it's great to be home. I'm definitely resting better at home, and in some ways I'm kind of philosophical getting home, kind of going, what's it going to take to solve this one? Because obviously it's the only one that's sort of been tripping me up.
When did you start to realize, or how did it sort of start to play itself out, where you realized that you couldn't continue? What happened?
Well, we'd made our big climb up to Camp 3, which is as high as you go before Summit Bid, and had worked very hard actually to get myself to Camp 3. Had an okay night there, came back to 2, and thought, okay, we're on our way out to base camp, we're going to have the big rest. And that evening at 2 started to feel a little bit unwell. Like, we did a radio check with base and they said, well, how are you all? And it was like, good, good, good. And I'm like, well, I think it kind of feels like my stuffing went out of me. I just didn't feel like myself, and I didn't feel like I had much strength. I felt quite weak. And so our plan had always been to go down, so we started moving from 2 to 1, and 2 to 1's pretty gentle as far as Everest goes. And I did all right moving downhill until we got into the kind of exit cracks above the ice fall, and there had to go down. That was okay, but going up just stopped me cold, and it was like I could hardly take a step. And you know, I was still moving, I was cognitively there, it was all good, but I didn't want to put my teammates at risk in the ice fall for as long as it was going to take. So we started talking with base about potentially using a helicopter to move me over the ice fall.
What was the thought process? When did you realize, well, I'm going to have to pack it in?
It actually was a couple days after the hospital. In the hospital, it was kind of funny. I don't know if it's because suddenly there was all that oxygen, and altitude illnesses, when you get down, tend to resolve fairly quickly. So I didn't feel that bad in hospital. First day was a little bit not so great, but second day I'm like, wow, this is great. Give me a couple days of rest in Kathmandu, and hopefully I can go in and join a team of trekkers that came from Newfoundland and maybe get back to my team. I was reading the literature about return to altitude, and there was some optimism there. And then when I got out of the hospital, it was like almost like I crashed and burned. That first day, I could hardly get out of bed, and a few other things started to kind of creep up, and so I started to get worried. But I thought, okay, I'll hang in a few more days. And eventually what made me decide to stop was 2 things. One, my team was going ahead very quickly with the plan to summit, which originally, that was different than originally we weren't aiming to be summiting until about the 24th of May. So I realized the time frame for catching up was, the door was closing very rapidly, and I still wasn't feeling 100%. And Everest deserves your 100%.
I know you're a very philosophical person, and I know that some people would see this as a failure. How do you see it?
You know, I remember in coming back in 2007, and Jeff Kahuli asked me what was harder to recover from, the Giardia at that point or the failed climb. And I remember going, failed climb? Because I've never necessarily defined success as the top. For this one, it was success in choosing to go back and taking on the fundraising and taking on the challenge of the training, and I felt like I'd gotten myself very fit before going, and I'd done quite a bit. But there also is some element of failure there, of really wishing and wanting to get further. And I did get further. I've slept higher than I ever slept before. Another huge success was all the children and schools that came along. That was just an absolute amazing experience for me to get to share it in real time. And I've had a lot of feedback from those teachers about how powerful it was for their students. And I still got stopped. And so it's that frustration of, I don't, other than, you know, continuing to work to get fit, strong, exposed to those germs, it's I don't quite know else how to solve it, other than maybe 4th time would be a charm. Will I go through all that effort and training for those 2 days? I would have originally told you a week ago I didn't think it was likely, but kind of when something gets taken from you and then you start going, I may still have some skin in that game. So who knows?
All right, well, I hope you recover, and I hope you recover in time for your next expedition. Thanks, TA Loeffler.
Thanks, Jonathan.